I always thought silence was harmless. That if you ignored the noise long enough, it would dissolve on its own like steam fading off a window. But lately, silence feels like glass under pressure. You can hear it cracking before it breaks. It was raining the night I found out. The kind of cold October rain that slicks the city in neon, makes it hard to tell reflections from reality. I was working late again at the firm, a finance startup on the 47th floor, all glass chrome, and ego. My badge beeped as I walked through the empty hallway. The hum of servers the only thing alive besides me. My phone buzzed. A text from Mara. Don't wait up tonight. Meeting ran late. Love you. Normal words, familiar, safe. Except something about the phrasing hit me wrong. We'd been married 7 years. I could read her tone like a map. This was detached, mechanical. I told myself I was tired, that I was paranoid. But when I got home around 11, the apartment felt different. Not empty, just wrong. The air was still warm from someone else's breath. Her coat was gone from the rack. Her perfume, that jasmine scent she wore when she wanted to feel desired, lingered like guilt. I poured a drink and stood by the window, watching the traffic below smear into color. A voice inside me whispered, "Don't look." But another voice, older, colder, said, "You already know." At 1:13 a.m., she came in, quietly, like someone entering a stranger's home. Her hair was damp, lipstick faded. She smiled, the kind of small, polite smile you give a coworker, not a husband. Late meeting? I asked, careful to calm. Yeah. You know how it is, she said, hanging her bag. Her eyes flicked away too fast. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But when she went to shower, her phone left on the counter, screen lighting up with a name I didn't recognize, and did me. Evan. A message flashed, next time, stay. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Instead, I sat there in the dark kitchen, listening to the shower run. The water masking the sound of something inside me breaking quietly, efficiently, like glass. For 3 days, I pretended not to know. I went to work. I smiled through meetings. But I started noticing things I'd never seen before. The way her phone was always face down, her laughter quieter, her touch rarer. Then, one night, I followed her. Not far, just enough to know. She said she was going to the gym. I watched her from the corner near 8th and Lexington as she met him, Kevin, the guy from her messages. Younger, cleaner smile, soft hands. They hugged. Not like strangers. Like people who've already done something irreversible. They disappeared into a cafe. I stood outside for 20 minutes, soaked to the bone, until the rain turned to snow. When I finally walked away, I didn't feel anger. Just emptiness. Like the city had gone mute. It's strange how betrayal doesn't happen all at once. It seeps. It rewrites your memories. Suddenly, every laugh, every touch, every silence becomes evidence. By the end of that week, I moved into a hotel. Told her I needed space, work stress, I said. She didn't ask why. Maybe she already knew the game was up. But here's the thing, the more I tried to distance myself, the more memories started surfacing. Things I hadn't thought about in years. The night my father left. The same rain. The same silence. He'd said, some truths are better left buried. I used to think he meant his affair. Now I'm starting to wonder if he meant something else entirely. There's a photograph I keep in my wallet, faded. Me as a kid, standing between my parents. My mother's smile looks forced. My father's hand on my shoulder feels almost possessive. I never thought much of it before. But lately, I can't stop staring at the background. Behind us, a man, blurred by motion, watching. The longer I look, the more I realize that man isn't a stranger. It's Evan, only 20 years younger. And that's when I start to understand, this isn't just about Mara. It never was. I didn't sleep the night I found the photo. I just sat on the edge of the bed in that overpriced Midtown hotel, staring at the wallet-sized memory that had suddenly turned toxic. Evan, the man who was sleeping with my wife, standing in the background of a picture taken 25 years ago. Impossible. And yet, not. When you spend your life in numbers, in data, and the clean certainty of systems like I do, you stop believing in coincidence. Everything connects, somehow, even if you don't like the shape of the pattern. I scanned the photo the next morning at the office. Enlarged it. Adjusted the contrast. The face wasn't perfect, blurred by distance, softened by time, But the jawline, the eyes, even the way he stood. It was him. Or someone who could have been his twin. And that was enough to make my pulse feel like static. I decided to find out who he really was. Evan worked at Kane Marrow, one of our competitors, a mid-tier tech firm specializing in cybersecurity. The kind of company that plays dirty but smiles clean. I pulled his employee file from a shared database, confidentially. Of course. That's one thing about being the chief financial officer. You know where the bodies are buried. His resume was sharp. MBA, Stanford. Joined Kane Marrow 6 years ago. No family listed. No photos. No social media. Scrubbed cleaner than a politician's conscience. But there was one line that caught my attention. Previous employment, Halbert Financial Group. That name hit like a whisper I'd been trying to forget. Halbert, my father's company. The one that imploded after he disappeared. I was 12 when it happened. My father, Richard Hale, ran Halbert Financial, a mid-size investment firm that grew too fast. Then one day, he was gone. No note, no goodbye, just a police report and headlines about fraud, missing assets, offshore accounts. My mother told me he'd run. I believed her. 4 years. But now, staring at Evan's file, something didn't fit. The dates overlapped too neatly. He'd worked at Halbert during the same quarter my father vanished. And if the man in that old photograph really was him, then Evan hadn't just appeared in my life. He'd been orbiting it for decades. That night, I went back to the apartment. Mara was still there, or rather, what was left of her. Her things half-packed, her eyes hollow from too many unspoken conversations. She didn't expect me, Tom. She said softly. You shouldn't be here. I ignored that. Who is Evan, really? Her face froze. A fraction too long. Then she tried to play it cool. He's just someone from work. I cut her off. Halbert Financial. That name rang a bell. The color drained from her face like water from a cracked glass. You looked into him. Of course I did, I said. He's sleeping with my wife. And apparently, he knew my father. She looked down at her hands. When she spoke, her voice trembled. Tom, you don't understand. I didn't mean for this to. I didn't mean for what? I stepped closer. For me to find out. Or for him to finish what he started. Tears welled in her eyes, but not the kind that asked for forgiveness, the kind that confessed to something darker. Tom, they're watching you. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Who's they? You think it's just about me and him? She whispered. This goes back years. Before we met. Before your father vanished. Evan didn't find me by accident. He found me because of you. I felt the floor tilt. What are you talking about? He works for them, she said, almost choking on the words. The people who made your father disappear. Halbert was never just a financial firm. It was a cover. For what? She hesitated, then leaned closer, voice barely audible. For the kind of money you can't trace, the kind governments pretend doesn't exist. I wanted to believe she was lying. That this was just another layer of manipulation, an excuse. But then I remembered the night my father vanished. The phone call my mother took in the kitchen. The envelope she burned in the sink. And suddenly, I wasn't so sure anymore. Where is he now? I asked. Evan. She shook her head slowly. No, your father. I left without answering. The city outside felt sharper somehow, like every light cut deeper. I walked for hours through the cold, until my reflection in every glass tower felt like a stranger's. When I finally stopped, I was standing across the street from a building I hadn't thought about in 20 years, Halbert Financial Group, or what was left of it. The sign was gone, but the address was the same. A new company occupied it now. Kane Marrow. Inside, something clicked to memory, faint but precise. My father's last words to me, before he disappeared: if something ever happens to me, look for the ledger. Don't trust anyone, not even the ones you love. And now I finally understood. Evan wasn't my wife's lover. He was my father's unfinished business. I didn't go to work the next morning. Didn't even call in. What was I supposed to say? Sorry. I just found out my father's ghost might be running my life through a dead corporation and my wife's lover. Instead, I sat in that hotel room with the curtains drawn, watching the city pulse through the cracks of light. Kane Marrow. The company where Evan worked. The one that now owned my father's old building. Coincidence? Not a chance. I made coffee that tasted like burnt metal and started digging. Halbert Financial's archives were long gone from public record, wiped clean after the bankruptcy investigation. But I still had an old USB drive buried in a folder labeled personal. I plugged it in. Dozens of encrypted files popped up. Names, numbers, offshore accounts. The kind of data that ruins careers if you read it out loud. And one file buried deep called ledger_1.txt. I opened it. It wasn't a financial record. It was a diary. March 3, 1999, they're closing it. I moved everything to the secondary ledger. The shell company will mask the flow until I'm gone. If Tom ever finds this, he'll know where to look. K&M will rise under a new name. They think they're the hunters. They're wrong. The initials hit me like a gunshot. K&M, Kane Marrow. My father knew. He built them. The company I'd spent years competing against, the one employing my wife's lover, was a reincarnation of HALBERD. My father hadn't disappeared. He transformed. At 2 a.m., I called Mara. She didn't answer. I tried again. Nothing. Finally, a text came through. Stop looking, Tom. Please. It's bigger than you think. Bigger than me. That was the moment I realized she wasn't warning me, she was protecting them. I threw on a jacket and left the hotel. The night air cut sharp through my chest as I walked downtown toward the old Halbert building, Kane Marrow's HQ now. Security cameras blinked red eyes at the door, but I still had my CFO credentials. Finance is a small world. Firewalls are built by humans. And humans are predictable. I got in. The lobby smelled of glass cleaner and secrets. All white marble and lead silence. I rode the elevator to the sub-basement, the old archive floor Halbert used to store paper contracts. My father brought me here once, when I was a kid. I remember the hum of the fluorescent lights, the cold, the way he'd said, "This is where the truth sleeps." The doors opened. The floor was abandoned now, half-lit, dusty, forgotten. Rows of locked cabinets stretched into the dark, and then I saw him. Evan. He stood by one of the file cabinets, back turned, wearing a gray suit like he'd just stepped out of an office meeting. When he turned, he didn't even look surprised. "Tom," he said quietly, "you weren't supposed to find this place. Guess I was better at my job than you thought." He smiled, almost sadly. "You really don't understand what you've walked into. Then explain it." He hesitated, just long enough to make me wonder if he was deciding whether to tell me or kill me. Finally, he said, "Your father didn't vanish. He was erased." I felt my throat tighten. By who? By the same people who built this place. Halbert was never a financial firm, it was a laundering system for intelligence budgets. Black projects, off-the-books operations. Your father ran the numbers, and when he tried to back out, they made him disappear. He opened a drawer and pulled out a single hard drive. He left a copy of the real ledger here, the one that traces everything. Offshore accounts. Political donors. Names that can't be spoken out loud. I stepped closer. "And you're just giving it to me?" He laughed softly. "You think I'm a villain in this? I was supposed to destroy it. Instead, I followed your wife to get to you." "Why me?" "Because you're the only blood he trusted," Evan said. "He left the access keys in your name. You've been sitting on the kill switch your entire career." Before I could respond, the elevator doors slid open behind us. 2 men stepped out. Suits. Calm. The kind of calm that comes from knowing how to make a body disappear without paperwork. Evan's face went pale. "They followed you." "Who are they?" I whispered. "Kane Marrow's real owners," he said. "They want the ledger destroyed. If they get it, your father's entire legacy dies with it." He shoved the hard drive into my hand. "Run. What about you?" He didn't answer, just pulled a gun from his jacket. The men moved fast. The sound of gunfire shattered the silence. 1, 2, 3 shots. Evan fell, a bloom of red spreading across his chest. I froze for half a second too long, then bolted down the corridor. The hard drive burning like ice in my hand. The last thing I heard before the elevator doors slammed shut was Evan's voice. Weak but clear, "Find the secondary ledger. It's not over yet." When I reached the street, dawn was bleeding into the skyline. The drive in my pocket felt heavier than my own heart. Somewhere behind me, Kane Marrow would erase every trace of what had happened. The police report would never mention Evan. His name would vanish, like my father's did. But now I knew the truth. And I had proof. As I walked back into the city, I realized the thing about betrayal is that it never ends where it begins. It spreads. It mutates. And sooner or later, it becomes your only inheritance. The city was just waking up when I reached my apartment for the first time in weeks. The doorman looked startled, maybe at the blood on my sleeve, maybe at my eyes. I didn't say a word. Inside, the place felt foreign. The furniture, the framed photos, the faint smell of Mare's perfume, all of it belonged to someone else. Someone who still believed in the illusion of stability. I put the hard drive on the kitchen table. That small, black rectangle held the truth about my father, about Halberd, about everything. And I couldn't bring myself to open it, because I already knew once I did, there'd be no way back. Around noon. The knock came, soft, familiar. I didn't need to check the peephole. Mara stood there, her hair pulled back, her face pale. No makeup, no lies, just exhaustion. "Can I come in?" I almost said no. But the part of me that still remembered her laughter, her warmth, her touch, hesitated. She stepped inside. Her eyes darted to the drive on the table. "So you found it?" "I found more than that," I said. "I found Evan, or what's left of him." She closed her eyes. "He told you everything, didn't he?" "Almost. I just don't know why." She looked at me for a long moment before answering. "Because your father didn't just launder money, Tom. He built the system that controls it. Every shadow account, every secret fund that fuels wars and buries people like him. And now you. The ledger is the map. Whoever holds it can expose or destroy half the people running this country." I felt my stomach twist. "And you were helping them keep it quiet." "I was protecting you," she said softly. "They told me if you started digging, you'd end up like him. I thought if I stayed close, if I played along, I could keep you safe." I laughed bitterly. "By sleeping with Evan." She didn't flinch. "He wasn't who you think he was." I stared at her. Don't twist this, Tom. Listen, he was your half-brother." The words hit me like a blade. For a second, I couldn't breathe. "That's impossible. Your father had another family before Halberd fell apart. Evan's mother worked for him until she found out what he was doing. He disappeared before she could expose him. Evan's been hunting him ever since. That's why he joined Kane Marrow. Why he found me. He thought I could lead him to you." I sank into a chair, the world tilting around me. All the anger, the jealousy, the grief, it suddenly felt small compared to the enormity of what she'd said. "So all this time," I whispered, "you were both using me?" Her eyes filled with tears. "No, I loved you, Tom. I just didn't know how to stop lying." The silence between us felt like a wound that couldn't close. Then I realized I could hear something faint. Electronic. I turned toward the window. A van was parked across the street. Black, idling, no plates. "They're here," she said. "They know you have it." I grabbed the drive. "How?" "They were tracking Evan. The second you took that hard drive, they knew." I looked at her. "Then we run." She shook her head. "It's too late for that." The hum grew louder. The building lights flickered, then died. Darkness. Mara's voice trembled. "There's another copy, isn't there?" "The secondary ledger." "Yes," I said slowly. "My father mentioned it. But I don't know where." She stepped closer, whispering, "He hid it somewhere you'd never look. Somewhere personal." Then she looked up, eyes glistening. "The photo." It hit me. The old picture from my wall at me between my parents, the blurred figure in the background. I pulled it out. The photo was thicker than it should have been. I peeled back the layers. Inside, taped flat, was a microchip no bigger than a thumbnail. The secondary ledger. The stairwell door burst open. Voices. Footsteps. Not cops, too quiet, too deliberate. Mara grabbed my hand. "Go? What about you?" She smiled, a small, broken smile. "I'm the reason they're here. You still have a chance." "Mara," she kissed me once, hard, desperate. Then she turned and stepped into the hall. The last thing I heard before I ran was her voice saying, "Tell your father he was wrong. Some truths are worth dying for." And then the gunfire started. I don't remember how it got out. Just flashes of smoke, glass, the cold air of the street. My hand bleeding but still clutching the chip. By dawn, I was miles away, driving north, past the city limits, toward a cabin my father once owned near the Catskills. The ledger sits on the passenger seat beside me. Every secret, every lie, every name that destroyed my family, all there, waiting. I could sell it, bury it, or release it and watch the world burn. The truth is a weapon, but it's also the only thing that makes us free. I stop the car, step out into the pale morning light. The mountains are quiet, still. For the first time in months, I can hear my own heartbeat. I take the ledger in my hand, hold it up to the sky and smile through the tears. Here's your truth, Dad, I whisper. Then I crush the chip beneath my heel. The world can keep its secrets. I'm done being part of them.